This lovely young lady on my right is Karin Higa, and to this point on our show as champion, she has won prizes totaling $6,456. And we're delighted to have you back with us. Karin is majoring in art history at Columbia University.
That's right.
Do you have a favorite artist? The reason I ask is that before the program, the producer and I were talking about how great Van Gogh is. Perhaps he stands head and shoulders above anyone else. Do you have a personal favorite among the artists?
Well, yeah, I like Robert Motherwell, the abstract expressionist.
Now that's contemporary, right? Very contemporary.
Very.
See, I'm not familiar with his work at all. Perhaps if we have time during a commercial break, you can tell me about some of his works and where I might find them. Go again, Karin.
Okay, let's see what's under number 4.
Vacuum, you saw that.
For the match of the vacuum at number 25.
Lower right-hand corner, makes it a match. Lady's cruising, she's on a roll. Gotten 3 in a row now. 3 prizes up there to show for it, and down here, 2 more pieces of the puzzle to help you solve it.
Till we meet again?
Is it till we meet again? Yes, it is. All right. Okay, Karin. Till we meet egg plus hen. Till we meet again. And Karin and I are going to meet again right here. Hey, Gene, describe some of the prizes you just won.
A 4-slice toaster, a slide projector, and a vacuum. The Whirlpool Power Clean Canister Vacuum Cleaner with power brush, a triple filter system, full circle cleaning hose, and easy touch controls furnished by Whirlpool.
Here are the 15 numbered squares. Here is the clock showing 50 seconds, 5-0. Good luck to you. Off you go.
1, 4.
No match.
7, 10.
No match.
13. 1.
That's a match.
14. 11.
No match.
8. 5.
No match.
2. 5.
That's a
3.
match.
14.
That's a match.
6. 9.
No match.
12. 4.
No match.
7. 12.
That's a match.
9. 4.
That's a match.
15. 10.
That's a match.
11. 8.
No match.
8. 6.
That's a match. All right, way to go. Nice going. Got that little beauty up there, and second step from the top. Gene's going to be so happy telling you about it. Go ahead, Gene, describe it for us.
Okay, Alex, Karin, you've just won this Honda Civic 4-door. Features air conditioning and AM/FM radio, furnished by Honda, a prize worth over $10,000.
We add that to your previous winnings. You now stand as a champion with $317 in total winnings. So congratulations to you. We're going to let you up there and take a close look at your car while we pause for these messages. Come on.
Thank you to everyone on the panel for having me. It's been really wonderful to learn so much about Karin Higa from her community, from her friends, family, and from artists and historians. I did not know Karin Higa, so I've had quite a task to now speak about somebody whom I didn't know personally. And I've been hoping that my place in this panel can reflect the kind of impact that her life's work has had on future generations. So for my part of the conversation, I'd like to share how I came to know her work and why this encounter has been important to me. Okay, so I'm an artist, and I want to say that part of my research is the activity of looking at objects from the past in order to read the intentions and sensibilities of makers, to essentially learn from the people of the past through the objects they've left behind. And these kinds of intergenerational conversations, even with people unknown to all of us now, is a driver of the work that I make. And I even see myself and my work in relationship to future generations and think about what sensibilities I can register in my works that can be legible to future artists. Recently, I wanted to take this idea further. And during the pandemic, I started considering my own personal geology, my ancestry, and I began focusing on a known but somewhat hidden part of my family history, their time during the World War II internment of Japanese Americans. I used the word research earlier, and I want to clarify that part of what I'm talking about can't be fully researched. Since my father, who was interned as a child from the age of 8 to 10, is no longer alive, I don't have direct access to that time through him. And regardless, I don't think he would want to talk about it. It was both known and unknown. In order to try to understand something about this experience, which greatly shaped my father, and also try to understand something about how his experience may have shaped me, I visited the Japanese American National Museum and met with Rick Noguchi. My intention on this visit was to work with their archive. I have heard that the land was barren when the camps were erected and the internees were able to cultivate the land. So any trees that are still on that site are vestiges from the time of the camp. And during this visit and conversation with Rick, he told me about Karin, who I honestly had not known much about. I developed an interest in wanting to know more about her work that, from my perspective, looks at and brings together artworks and artists that triangulate and open up a cross-cultural, intergenerational conversation that challenges fixed notions of artistic identity. You can't underestimate the value of this kind of encounter for any kind of artist. This ongoing search, looking at objects, evidence of past voices, are parts of a foundation I'm building to perpetuate into the future. And I found this in Karin's work as well. By attempting to find that which cannot be defined, by creating space, she has created the ability for future generations like mine to pick up and continue that work, complicating narratives that are applied to us that we do not need to passively accept. I would like to share a passage from an essay she wrote that is titled California Registered Historical Landmark, number 850. I found this essay in Andrew Freeman's book, Manzanar Architecture Double, in which he photographs what were once barracks that had been removed from Manzanar, a World War II internment camp in California. They were relocated and repurposed. In this essay, Karin recalls her family's trips to Manzanar, which were often organized around cleanups. She wrote, "We were all scavenging for history there, and we did it with our heads down, focused on the land. There were no barracks, only piecemeal remains of concrete foundations, an occasional shard of thick white institutional pottery or bits of rusted metal. These fragments were evidence in our architectural search for truth. We knew that something had happened at Manzanar, and despite that absence of barracks, the traces on the ground gave credence to a history that was not a part of official narratives of American history. We didn't learn about Japanese internment at school. We learned about it at home. And it seemed to me as a child a secret that the Japanese American families kept among themselves. The trips we all took to Manzanar, a vast expanse of nothing, were proof of its elusiveness, as if the government had tried to sweep it all away." The book that we're talking about is called Hidden in Plain Sight, Selected Writings of Karin Higa.
Made me think she's somebody who was a role model that I didn't even realize was a role model when she was in my life. The simple answer is my first institutional shows, 2 of them, were through her. So that's a very real thing. And I've been looking a lot at Godzilla and the organizing that she did with the group, and it's really inspiring. And it seemed like it was really fun. Like the Godzilla book is basically a lot of primary source materials, flyers, newsletters, and photographs, and everybody looks like they're having a blast. And she talks about, in her writing on Godzilla, that a year into the meetings, which were in different people's apartments in New York, there was a kind of cachet around going to these meetings. And so they grew and grew. And then they were at Clock Tower Gallery, and then they were at Artist Space, and then there was like standing room only at the meetings. So it's about generating energy.
Thank you so much. Unless you have any questions or topics that you want to address, I think this might be a great time to open it up to audience. Questions, comments?
Hi, everyone. I don't have a very well-formulated question, but particularly, Anna, as you're speaking about Godzilla, it reminded me of the context in which Godzilla formed, coming from what was the culture wars in a very divisive society in the US in the 80s, coming into the 90s. And I find it very interesting that we're at a moment where we're having to make these networks, these groups, once again. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that, because I think it says something quite resonant about the context we're in, which we're living, and maybe the question is how that forms in your own practices. What is this kind of, I don't know, struggle? It's too strong of a word, but perhaps it is the right word. What is the struggle now that you think differentiates from, say, what Godzilla was doing in the 90s?
I think I could speak to that. Or I have an answer for myself. For me, the struggle is invisibility. It's been invisibility for a long time. I mean, I think it's really wonderful that we're all here together and people showed up. I actually had a nightmare that no one would show up and the lights didn't come on and the museum staff wasn't there. But I think it's great that we're all here together. There have been tragic reasons for us to mobilize, but then we're here. But for me, you know, when I started working on Asian American art exhibitions in 1997, so the struggle then was invisibility, and it remains invisibility.
Sorry, we're running out of time. So we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Okay.
Thanks, Claudia. Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm full of admiration for everybody. I kind of want to play the academic for a second because we're at UCLA, and I think that because I was at some Godzilla meetings, and I knew Karin because I was a year before her in the ISP, and I saw the first show she organized with Pam in New York. And of course, I also knew her here. And I think, you know, Mika's completely right. The breadth of Karin's work is really astounding. I just want to put into dialogue several ideas that have been put into circulation. The first being, what was the difference between Godzilla and now? So I think one has to think a bit about New York in the early 90s, in that ACT UP started in 1987. WAC, which was one of the projects of the director here, started in, I think, 1992-ish. I was a direct beneficiary of Godzilla in the sense that because there were no Asian American artists in the Whitney Biennial in 1991, I feel that my being in the 93 Biennial was a direct result of that.
That's because there were none in 1991.
That's right. So I want to put into dialogue this idea of visibility versus the idea of hidden in plain sight. In the sense that I think Kelly's example of that, which is something that's on the ground before you, shards or traces, pieces of metal, they're speaking. You know, not anything coherent, but it's actually dying to speak. That I think portrays for me, at least, not just that we're here and hidden in plain sight, but then there's also a desire to reveal. And that desire to reveal is, in a sense, the secret. The secret is not information. The secret is that which you desperately want to reveal, but cannot reveal. And therefore, I want to put this idea of what is different now in dialogue with what was happening in 1992, 93. So yes, visibility, invisibility, that's really important. But I think that what we're trying to reveal desperately is our love for one another. I mean, that is really basically the secret, right? There's actually no information there. There's no content there, except if we were to go back to the origins of Asian American, of the term Asian American. If we were to think back to 1968, 1969, you will remember that the term that was used then was not people of color. It was third world people. So I would just simply like to propose that we keep that in mind, that the secret intimacy between colonized people all over the world, including the indigenous, is really the precious thing that we, I think, can express a little bit differently than something like the solidity of an identity. Once upon a time, assimilate into an identity, something called Asian American. We have this identity to use however we want, right? So I just want to remember 1968. I want to remember 1992, but also what we can do with it now.
가자지구 한 병원 앞에서 울먹이며 생중계를 하던 기자, 방탄조끼를 벗기 시작합니다.
منذ نصف ساعة فقط وجدنا الآن هو وزوجته وابنه وأخيه وكثير من عائلته هم ضحايا هنا في داخل المستشفى. مشهد مؤلم ولا زال حتى هذه اللحظة يتواصل هذا العدوان وتتواصل هذه الهجمة.
불과 30분 전 같은 자리에서 가자지구 폭격 피해를 전했던 팔레스타인 TV의 기자. 방송 직후 귀가했다 집을 덮친 폭격에 사망했습니다.
Hi, everybody. You know, I actually had the fear that we conveyed a little bit earlier that no one would show up, and then, but here we are. Thank you for coming. What we're going to look at now is actually something that was inspired by Mira, my collaborator. Because a few years ago, she asked me, not a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, she asked me to respond to a piece that she made. It's called Tezur, and you can find it online. It's very easy to find, and it's a very beautiful work. It's a work that changes every time you go onto it, and there's sound elements, there's text. So I just want to show you a couple of images if you were to go onto fulcrumarts.org's website. So, for example, the one on the left is, I believe, is that a scene from Theresa Hak Kyung Cha's film? Yeah, okay. So I began rethinking about Cha a couple of years ago through Na's invitation. Of course, I'd known about her work since 1980s. Theresa Hak Kyung Cha once said that she wanted to be the dream of the audience. And when I talked to Na for a conversation that we did, I told her that I had dreamed about Theresa Hak Kyung Cha. I dreamt that she was drunk. And that was a sign that she must have been deliriously happy. One thing about dreams is that they need to be interpreted. They are a kind of tesseract. They can be folded in ways that are not immediately visible or knowable because they operate at the level of affect. In your dreams, you may attribute a person whom you dislike with an overflow of affectionate feeling. What you see, what you seem to think, represent to yourself is something for self-analysis. Am I trying to fool myself? What the affective does not obey is a one-to-one correspondence. They are doubled, tripled, quadrupled. So I begin thinking about the tesseract as that which falls within and well beyond itself. Because it's something you cannot really visualize. because we're bounded by 3 dimensions. I'm struck by how so many animations of the Tesseract pictures it folding within and beyond. It is both infinite regress and infinite expansion. I was assuming that the Tesseract gave Na the title for her piece, Tes your hours, following Cha using French, but also simply another language, which gives us a slowed down double space for words. Use the Tesseract to go back to the dream in relationship to this one passage that I want to read with you. On a list of Korean names, I notice Kwan means tube. On a list of goddesses, I notice Kuan Yin is she who perceives the sounds of the world. In the constellation before the last exhibition, we asked Kuan Yin to be our guide. She rides a dragon, and dragon is my role. The dream is like a tesseract, evoking the beyondness of perception, but like the tesseract, as an embodiment beyond what one can fully perceive. It is the affective immersion of the dream, but the dream also has a faith, an acceptance of that which is beyond. So we comprehend a totality, but that totality is not encompassing. It is dilating, contracting, moving through. Totality, far from being an entity, is more on the order of a feeling. Dragon. In certain nationalistic evocations of the dragon, there is a miscomprehension of it as, for example, the Chinese people or China itself. China is the dragon. That it embodies dominance. But here, she's riding the dragon. The dragon is her ride. You are her ride. In other words, you take on the drive. The drive is another type of engine. It doesn't have a particular destination. The dragon is the drive on the way somewhere else. So in thinking about feelings as that model of totality that is not encompassing, not an entity, this is where we can begin. Gunyam, gun, to see, to perceive, yam, sound. Gunyam, as you see right here, is the goddess of mercy as named by the Jesuits. And using my native language, Cantonese, her name, laid out before you, is to perceive the sound of the world, to see the sound of the world. It's fortuitous that Satan is the third figure in our conversation because one can think of the South Asian origin of Buddhism and its migration east, Southeast Asia to China, Korea, Japan. In the word gun, you see the radical on the right, which means to see.
Necessary form of support to address this humanitarian crisis?
Well, right now the most important thing is to have an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
죽거나 다치고 가까스로 살아남아도 트라우마에 시달리는 가자지구 어린이들의 처참한 현실이 기약 없이 이어지고 있습니다. SBS 조은아입니다.
네, 지금까지 10,000명이 넘는 이스라엘 하마스 전쟁 사망자 중에는 전쟁의 참상을 알리기 위해서 이 사선에 뛰어든 기자들도 포함되어 있습니다. 로이터 통신 기자부터 해서 많은 기자들이 또 죽어나가고 있는데요. 이 폭격의 동료를 잃은 한 팔레스타인 기자는 생방송 도중에
Now, if one were to look at the history of this radical, you'd see that it begins with an eye atop a human figure. So you see the migration closer to modern times. And the character on the top is how you would write it in today's script. So this eye above a human figure, I think, gives us a sense of picturing what it is to see. To perceive sound, to see sound. The gunyam to see.
네, 사이먼 가펑클의 노래였습니다. The Sound of Silence였어요. 여러분 혹시 그 소식 들으셨어요? 돼지의 그 심장을 사람에게 이식했다는 그 소식. 그런데 거부 반응 없이 실험에 처음으로 성공했다라는 그런 소식 말입니다.
One thing that's interesting about Gunyam is that there was a migration of genders. Gunyam is the Chinese and also Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese manifestation of the 10th level Bodhisattva, Avalokitesvara, which previous to the Song dynasty was male. So there was a process of translation in more than language, which made Gunyam into a female figure. So Gunyam, in other words, is a trans figure. This is a trans body. And that brings me back to Cha and how I think Na taught me to look at Cha a little bit differently. So, of course, you see a famous work by Theresa Hak Kyung Cha called Avec la voix, blind voice. I think that in the correct French grammar, it would be voix aveugle, but the blind voice that she puts as her title perhaps follows an English grammar. This was a piece that she did in San Francisco in 1975. So I just want to think a little bit about extrasensory being beside oneself. A pronoun at once being no one and a multiple, perhaps a they. That was from Young Soo Min's memorial here a couple of weeks ago. And of course, Young Soon was friends with Cha and did a lot to keep her name and her work in circulation, especially last couple of years when Young Soon organized the reading of dictee, the hours-long reading of dictee that happened here and also in New York. So for me, Gunyam resonates with Cha's conceptions of sound, of vision, the body, the indexical, the photographic, the performative, and space. Words fail me. Theresa Hak Kyung Cha was a squatter.
Sail on, silver girl. Sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams on their way. See how they shine.
But of course, I also think about all the performances where there are blindfolds, and of course, we can't not have Vito Conchi in this. I think what's happening is that people are throwing balls at him, and he's trying to catch them or duck them or something. Maybe a little bit closer to Theresa Hak Kyung Cha's sensibility would be Terry Fox's Turgeon to Sex, 1971. This was also made in San Francisco. I don't think it was made for an audience per se, so I think it was a video that was made that was documenting a performance. But it happened maybe a couple of years before, what was it, 4 years before Cha's piece. But I think in some ways, one of the things I'm interested in starting to think about, and it's, and we're doing this at a very elementary stage, I think, is to think about how a piece like Blind Voice can be compared to other genealogies. Sin Cha Hong's ritual performance in 1973 would be an example, as would Kim Koo-lim's work that I only discovered at the show at the Hammer a couple of months ago, actually. So you see the white fabric that is on a roll, unfurling. This is a proposal for, I suppose, the Guggenheim Museum. And you see that at the bottom, that's a coffin. So it's this endless looping fabric that encircles the rotunda of the Guggenheim, but beginning and ending in a coffin. And of course, I think a lot about how the color white is the color of mourning in Asian countries.
First, I would like to thank all of嚟臨紅館睇我演唱會嘅觀眾，係你哋將我擺翻上呢個舞台。喺呢度，我覺得我係一個非常幸運嘅藝人，因為 有你哋一班永遠咁支持我嘅朋友，
你哋咁多人支持我，
多謝晒你哋，
多謝晒你。
今晚係一個非常例外嘅晚上，
非常例外。
加料好唔好啊？
加料好唔好啊 ？OK。
嗱，但係加料嘅時候，希望大家聽我講一個點解咧？
古仔點解咧？
我諗我自己
其實我自己唔係一個係後上嘅人。
其實
因為
由我開始唱歌到而家咧，
我開始唱歌等到而家咧，已經幾十年啦。我開演唱會亦都開咗好多次。我開演唱會我已經每一次我個媽媽咧都會嚟同我分享。但係冇一次，我真真正正聽。我媽媽今晚又到。我媽媽今日喺度。媽咪，點解你可以生到我咁得意、咁靚仔嘅咧？咁靚仔嘅咧？係咪你嗰晚心情同爹哋特別開心、特別 high 咧？特別 high 咧？媽咪，我今晚喺呢度送一首歌俾你。同埋咧，另外一位，我覺得喺我生命裏邊好重要嘅一位好朋友，即係你嘅契仔，即係你嘅契仔。喺我最失意嘅時候，經濟最差嘅時候，佢可以將佢所有嘅人工幾個月嘅人工借俾我渡過難關。你知我講緊邊個咧？你當然就係我好朋友唐先生啦，係嘛？喺呢度。我要將呢一首歌送俾我呢兩位至愛嘅朋友，同埋我嘅親友，送俾你有以後呢一首，當然亦都送俾在座所有嘅朋友聽。國菜嘅朋友，問我愛你有多深？我愛你有幾分？我的情也真，我的愛也真，月亮代表我的心。你問我愛你有多深？我愛你有幾分？我的情不移，我的愛不變，月亮代表我的心。輕輕的一個吻，已經打動我的心，深深的一段情，叫我思量到無盡。你問我愛你有多深？我愛你有幾分？你去想一想，你去看一看，月亮代表我的心。輕輕的一個吻，已經打動我的心，深深的一段情，叫我思量到無盡。你問我愛你有多深？我愛你有幾分？你去想一想，你去看一看，月亮代表我
的心，深深的一个吻，已经打动我的心，深深的一段情，叫我思量到无尽。你问我爱你有多深，我爱你有几分？你去想一想，你去看一看，月亮代表我的心。
Any questions from the audience?